Clara Evans stepped lightly across the grand hall of Eldoria, her small human frame almost lost in the vast expanse of alien architecture. The ceiling was impossibly high, stretching into a dome that glimmered with crystalline panels, reflecting colors that her human eyes could barely name. The floor beneath her feet was polished and smooth, echoing the footsteps of alien nobles who moved with rigid precision, their long limbs and sharp features making them appear both graceful and intimidating. Each of them wore ceremonial robes in rich, vibrant colors, adorned with intricate patterns that told of their long histories and family lineages. Yet despite all the display of power, none of them could make the ancient crown glow. The crown rested on a pedestal in the center of the hall, surrounded by a soft, almost ethereal light. It was made of a metal she had never seen before, shifting in color as if alive, its surface etched with delicate symbols that seemed to move when one looked closely. Legend said it could judge a ruler's worth, glowing only for the one who possessed true wisdom, courage, and empathy. Over the centuries, countless alien nobles had attempted to wear it, but each time the crown remained dark, rejecting them silently, leaving the elders frustrated and the spectators bewildered. Clara watched quietly from the edge of the hall. She had been sent from Earth as a young ambassador, chosen for her intelligence, curiosity, and calm demeanor. Humans were considered weak and fragile by the Eldorians, and many of the aliens barely noticed her presence. That suited Clara just fine. She preferred observing to speaking, learning through watching, and trying to understand rather than impress. Her brown hair was tied neatly behind her head, and her simple clothing contrasted sharply with the flowing robes of the aliens, but it allowed her to move easily and stay out of the way. The elders of Eldoria paced near the crown, their expressions tight with concern. Their society depended on a ruler who could guide them wisely, and the crown's rejection of every candidate had left them anxious. Some muttered complaints, fingers brushing the air as if to test the crown's reaction, but nothing changed. Others gestured in frustration at the assembled nobles who had tried and failed, their faces a mix of anger and worry. Clara noticed how tense they all were, and for the first time she felt a mixture of excitement and curiosity stirring inside her. Why would a crown, capable of judging the worthiest of leaders, reject every alien candidate? Clara's gaze shifted from the crown to the faces of the nobles. They were proud, confident, and often arrogant. Many spoke in hushed tones, exchanging advice or secrets, discussing strategy or ways to impress the crown. Yet their words seemed hollow, lacking real thought or feeling. Clara realized that perhaps the crown did not measure intelligence alone, nor power, nor lineage. It measured something deeper. Something that could not be feigned or manipulated. Something that came from the heart. She stepped closer, careful not to draw attention. A few nobles glanced at her briefly, curious, but quickly returned their focus to the crown. Clara could see the smallest flicker of disappointment cross the faces of those who had failed, followed by frustration, a rising sense of fear that perhaps none among them could ever meet the crown's impossible standard. She noticed how some of them avoided looking at each other, unwilling to acknowledge their repeated failures. The crown had tested their courage, their wisdom, and their compassion, and they had all fallen short. Clara, by contrast, had no expectation of impressing anyone. She moved gently, deliberately, observing the smallest details, the way the crown shimmered in response to an elder's hesitant approach, the subtle vibrations that accompanied the crown's judgment, and the anxious murmurs of the onlookers. She felt a quiet sense of respect for the crown itself, understanding that it was not a tool of power, but a mirror of true leadership. It demanded sincerity, humility, and a willingness to care for others without seeking reward. As she stood there, she noticed a young alien noble step forward, chest puffed with pride, convinced that he could finally succeed where others had failed. He reached for the crown and the room held its collective breath. The crown remained dark. A murmur of surprise swept through the hall, followed by sharp whispers of disappointment and frustration. Clara could see the man's pride falter, his confidence crumbling as he stepped back, shoulders tense and face flushed. She understood, even without being tested herself, that the crown was not swayed by arrogance or entitlement. Curiosity now fully ignited, Clara felt an impulse to approach, not to challenge, not to prove herself, but simply to understand. She wondered what it would take to meet the crown's standard, to do what hundreds of others could not. The hall was quiet now, the tension palpable. Eyes that had watched the nobles attempt and fail were drawn to her small figure at the edge of the room. The elders exchanged glances, unsure of what a human girl might do, but intrigued by her calm demeanor. Clara took a careful step forward, her heart steady, feeling neither fear nor pride. She could sense the crown's energy, pulsing gently as if aware of her presence. She did not aim to impress it or claim it for herself. She simply approached with a quiet honesty, a willingness to observe, learn, and act with care. Her human nature, small, unassuming, and empathetic, set her apart from the proud, confident aliens who had failed before her. The elders watched in silence as Clara drew closer. There was no show of strength, no display of cleverness, no attempt to manipulate the crown. Just a young girl with a steady gaze, calm movements, and an open heart. She did not know yet whether she would succeed, but for the first time in decades, there was a sense of possibility in the hall, a quiet hope that perhaps the impossible could be achieved by someone no one had expected. And as Clara stood before the crown, the weight of history pressing down upon her, she felt a spark of curiosity and courage grow within her, a spark that might change everything the aliens believed about leadership, worth, and the surprising power of humanity. Clara Evans stood at the edge of the ceremonial hall, watching the alien nobles attempt the crown's trials. The first test focused on intelligence. Candidates were presented with a complex puzzle, one that required logic, strategy, and creativity. The aliens approached it with confidence, their long fingers moving quickly across the panels, arranging symbols and sequences with precision. Yet their minds were clouded by pride. They tried to impress the observers, opting for flashy solutions that looked clever but ignored the deeper meaning of the puzzle. Each attempt failed. The crown remained dark, its energy unmoved by their calculated efforts. The elders sighed in frustration. They had hoped that centuries of knowledge and experience among the nobles would finally produce a worthy ruler. Instead, the candidates revealed arrogance, impatience, and the inability to see beyond their own cleverness. Clara noticed the subtle tension among them, the quick glances, the whispered criticisms, and the growing irritation as they failed again and again. She understood that the crown was not interested in mere intelligence or skill. It sought a combination of understanding, humility, and insight that the aliens had lost. When the second trial began, focused on compassion, the nobles struggled even more. They were shown holograms of suffering, villages in need, creatures in danger, and disputes between different communities. The candidates had to make choices that prioritized others' well-being rather than their own status or comfort. Many failed immediately, choosing solutions that favored themselves or their closest allies. A few tried to manipulate the outcomes, hoping to gain favor from the elders, but the crown rejected every effort. Clara watched quietly, seeing the disappointment and frustration on the nobles' faces. She felt empathy for the failures. They had been raised in a society that prized power over care, and the crown's test highlighted the emptiness in their hearts. When it was her turn, Clara stepped forward and the hall fell silent. The alien elders looked at her with surprise and curiosity. She was small and human, an outsider in every sense, yet she approached the trial without hesitation. The holograms appeared before her, showing the same suffering the aliens had faced. Clara's mind worked quickly, not to impress or manipulate, but to consider what would truly help those in need. She offered practical solutions, helping communities and creatures in ways that were fair, thoughtful, and kind. She listened to the voices of the holograms as if they were real, imagining the consequences of each action. The elders watched closely, their eyes widening in astonishment. Clara's compassion was quiet but real, a natural extension of her character rather than a display for recognition. Unlike the nobles, she did not act out of pride or fear of judgment. She acted because it was the right thing to do. The crown seemed to respond subtly, a faint glow pulsing around its edges, as if acknowledging her sincerity. Clara took note of the smallest details, ensuring that no one was left behind and that her choices would not cause harm. The final trial tested courage. The candidates were asked to face simulated dangers, fires, collapsing structures, and unseen threats designed to challenge both bravery and quick thinking. Alien nobles approached it with pomp and performance, making grand gestures or rushing to show fearlessness. Most failed. Their courage was hollow, motivated by vanity rather than genuine concern. A few faltered completely, choosing to protect themselves or avoid risk entirely. The crown remained dark, silently judging their motivations. Clara stepped into the simulation with a steady heart. She did not rush or act for appearance. She moved carefully, prioritizing the safety of those around her, making decisions that required both bravery and empathy. She calmed frightened beings, guided the vulnerable to safety, and made calculated choices that balanced risk and protection. Her courage was quiet but undeniable, her determination grounded in care rather than self-interest. She faced danger not to prove herself, but because it was necessary to protect others. The elders watched in amazement. This human girl, small and unassuming, displayed a depth of thought and character that no alien noble had shown. She demonstrated intelligence tempered by humility, compassion that extended beyond favoritism, and courage rooted in genuine concern for others. The crown, which had rejected every alien candidate for centuries, now responded to Clara's presence. Its energy pulsed faintly, recognizing her qualities. As the trials concluded, Clara stepped back from the simulations. She did not boast or celebrate. She simply breathed, her focus on the well-being of those she had helped during the tests. The elders murmured to each other in astonishment, realizing that her human perspective, so different from their own, was what the crown required. Her actions had not been flashy or grand, but they had been sincere, deliberate, and effective. For the first time in decades, the crown had a candidate worthy of its glow. Clara's combination of intelligence, compassion, and courage had fulfilled the ancient tests in a way the aliens could not comprehend. The hall remained quiet, the nobles subdued, some with grudging respect, others with disbelief. Clara, small and calm, had shown that leadership was not about status, strength, or tradition. It was about caring, thinking deeply, and acting bravely when it mattered most. The elders exchanged glances, their earlier frustration replaced with awe. They began to understand that perhaps their society had overlooked what was truly important. And as Clara stood there quietly, waiting without expectation, a sense of possibility filled the hall, a quiet hope that the impossible could be achieved by someone no one had expected, a human girl whose heart and mind shone brighter than the proudest alien nobles. The ceremonial hall trembled as the energy storm hit, sending waves of crackling light and bursts of wind through the chamber. Outside, the sky above Eldoria had turned a deep violet, and lightning arcs danced unpredictably across the air, striking the hall's crystalline panels. The alien candidates froze, wide-eyed and unsure, their carefully rehearsed confidence evaporating. They had faced trials before, but none like this. The storm was not just a test of courage. It was a living force, unpredictable, dangerous, and indiscriminate. Delegates screamed and ducked as the storm rattled the hall. Some of the smaller alien species scurried under tables, wings and limbs trembling. The nobles looked around, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. Many of them focused solely on protecting themselves, retreating to corners or shielding their expensive robes and ceremonial robes from the damage. No one seemed willing to take responsibility for the frightened creatures or delegates around them. Clara Evans, however, did not hesitate. Her heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She saw the fear in the eyes of the smaller beings and knew she had to act quickly. Without a moment of doubt, she moved through the chaos, guiding groups of frightened delegates toward the reinforced center of the hall. She spoke calmly, her voice cutting through the roar of the storm, offering directions and reassurance. "This way. Stay close. Don't panic," she called, steadying her tone to calm the trembling voices around her. A small, winged creature darted under a table, terrified by the lightning streaks. Clara crouched low, reaching gently for it. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, lifting it carefully and placing it in a safe corner. She repeated the same with others, young aliens, elders who had stumbled, and even a few nobles too frightened to move. She did not discriminate, each life mattered equally to her. The storm raged on, shaking the hall and throwing sparks from the energy panels. One of the alien nobles cried out, struggling to hold onto a delicate artifact. Clara ran to him, her small hands steady as she grabbed the object and handed it to a safer spot, then guided the noble toward a secure area. Her movements were deliberate but quick, balancing speed and caution. Every decision she made considered the safety of others first. The elders watched from the high dais, their usual expressions of control replaced with awe. They had never seen courage like this, not in any alien noble. The humans had always been underestimated, seen as weak and fragile, yet here was Clara, a human girl, moving with determination and calm, saving lives while others hesitated. She was brave without seeking glory, empathetic without expectation, and capable without arrogance. Lightning struck closer, sending shards of crystalline panels into the air. Clara pushed forward, shielding a group of smaller aliens with her body, standing firm even as the storm threatened to knock her off her feet. Her courage was quiet, not loud or boastful, but undeniable. Each life she protected, each small action she took, radiated the qualities the crown had been searching for. Intelligence alone could not have achieved this. Empathy alone would not have sufficed. Courage had to be paired with compassion, and Clara embodied both perfectly. Some of the alien candidates tried to assist, but their efforts were scattered and ineffective. They acted sporadically, motivated by pride or fear, not by genuine concern. The contrast between their hesitation and Clara's steady focus could not have been clearer. The elders exchanged looks, realization dawning on them. The crown had been waiting for someone who could combine all three virtues in perfect harmony. The repeated failures of the alien nobles were not failures of intellect, but failures of heart. As the storm began to weaken, Clara led the last of the frightened delegates to safety. She stood in the center of the hall, breathing heavily but steady, surveying the scene. The delegates were safe, the nobles humbled, and the elders silent in astonishment. The hall that had moments ago been chaotic and dangerous now seemed calm, filled with a sense of relief and wonder. The crown's pedestal glimmered faintly as if acknowledging her actions. A soft light pulsed around it, resonating with her bravery, humility, and empathy. Clara had not sought to impress the crown or the elders. She had acted out of necessity, compassion, and the instinct to protect. That instinct, so natural to her human nature, had passed where centuries of alien training and ambition had failed. Finally, the elders stepped forward, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and reverence. They approached Clara cautiously, unsure how to address someone whose courage had surpassed every expectation. One elder murmured to another, voice shaking slightly, She has passed where none of us could succeed. A human." Clara looked at them quietly, her chest still rising and falling with exertion. She did not smile triumphantly, nor did she boast. She simply nodded, acknowledging their presence but remaining focused on ensuring everyone else was safe. The aliens realized something profound. Leadership, true leadership, was not determined by lineage, pride, or display of power. It was determined by the courage to act for others, the humility to see value in every life, and the empathy to care beyond oneself. In that moment, the ceremonial hall of Eldoria was no longer just a place of tradition and ritual. It had become a testament to the strength and heart of a human girl. The crown, the elders, and the alien nobles had witnessed something they had never seen before. Clara Evans had done what no alien could, combining wisdom, compassion, and courage in a single, decisive act. And in that quiet bravery, the hall felt alive, as though acknowledging that a new kind of hero had arrived. A hero whose small frame held a heart and mind larger than any alien could imagine. For the first time in centuries, the crown had found someone worthy. And though Clara did not yet touch it, the light in the hearts of the elders and the quiet awe of the hall confirmed the truth. She had passed where every alien candidate had failed. Humanity, underestimated and often dismissed, had revealed its extraordinary potential through her unwavering bravery and empathy. Clara Evans stepped forward slowly, her footsteps quiet against the polished floor of Eldoria's grand hall. The energy storm had passed, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and the soft hum of the crown's pedestal. The air was heavy with expectation, the alien nobles and elders watching her closely, unsure of what would happen next. Every eye was fixed on her, the human girl who had passed the impossible trials, yet she felt no need to rush or impress. Her focus was steady, her mind calm, and her heart quietly resolute. The crown sat upon its pedestal, gleaming faintly at first, as if sensing her presence. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, shifting colors and subtle waves that reflected the grand hall's crystalline architecture. Clara could feel the energy it radiated, a gentle but insistent pulse, resonating with something deep inside her. She reached out carefully, her hands hovering just above the crown, not touching it immediately. The elders leaned forward, anticipation and astonishment etched on their faces. They had never seen anyone approach it with such quiet confidence, let alone a human, and the thought of the crown accepting her seemed almost impossible. As her fingertips brushed the surface, the crown responded. Light began to flow across its intricate designs, soft at first, then growing brighter, filling the hall with a warm, golden glow. The elders gasped in unison, some stepping back, shielding their eyes against the brilliance. The crown pulsed rhythmically as if alive, resonating with her very presence. It accepted her, not because of strength, lineage, or ambition, but because of the qualities she had shown throughout the trials: courage, humility, and empathy. The alien nobles stared, their expressions a mix of awe, disbelief, and a touch of shame. For centuries they had believed that only one of their own could earn the crown, yet it had chosen a human. Clara, however, remained humble. She did not smile triumphantly or raise her head to demand recognition. Instead, she knelt carefully before the crown, her hands resting gently on her knees, her eyes lowered in quiet acknowledgement. She understood the weight of what the crown symbolized, the centuries of tradition, and the responsibility it carried. Leadership was not a prize to be claimed, it was a duty to serve others, to protect and guide with wisdom and care. The elders stepped closer, whispering among themselves. They marveled at the courage it had taken for someone so small and unassuming to act decisively when so many powerful nobles had failed. Clara's actions during the trials had demonstrated that leadership was not about showing off, commanding authority, or seeking personal glory. It was about caring for others, making difficult decisions with empathy, and remaining steadfast in the face of danger. She had embodied all the qualities the crown required, and now it shone brightly in recognition of her worth. Some of the nobles shifted uneasily, unsure how to respond. They had failed the crown repeatedly, and yet here was someone who had succeeded without ambition or entitlement. Clara's human perspective, seeing value in every life, acting with integrity and prioritizing the welfare of others, was something the aliens had not understood until now. The elders realized that the crown's choice was not a reflection on their worth as a people, but a lesson on what true leadership meant. Clara raised her head slightly, allowing her eyes to meet the elders' gaze. Her expression was calm, yet filled with quiet determination. She spoke softly, her voice carrying across the hall. "I do not seek the throne for myself. I understand its power and its responsibility. Leadership is not about ruling over others, but about protecting them and uniting them. I promise to act with fairness, care, and respect for all." A hush fell over the hall. The elders were struck by the simplicity and sincerity of her words. They realized that the crown had chosen not only a worthy leader but also a teacher, someone who could show them the value of humility and compassion. The glow of the crown seemed to intensify, bathing Clara in a warm light that highlighted her small frame but magnified her presence. It was a light of approval, acknowledgement, and understanding, confirming that her actions and her heart were exactly what the crown had been seeking. Clara remained kneeling, letting the crown shine, allowing the hall to absorb the moment. She did not feel the need to assert herself. The recognition and respect had already been given through the crown's acceptance. The alien nobles, who had once considered humans weak and insignificant, now looked at her with a mixture of respect and awe. They saw that strength did not always come from power or lineage, but from character, courage, and the willingness to care for others selflessly. The crown's glow slowly settled into a steady, gentle light, a sign that its judgment was complete. Clara had not taken it for herself. She had not sought to dominate or control. She had simply acted with honesty, bravery, and empathy, demonstrating that leadership could be defined by service rather than ambition. The elders nodded, understanding that this moment marked a turning point for their civilization. Their centuries-old beliefs about power and worth were being rewritten by the actions of a human girl who had shown them what true leadership could be. In that quiet, radiant hall, Clara Evans knelt before the crown, embodying the values it had always sought. The elders, the nobles, and all who witnessed the moment realized that greatness did not depend on species, size, or tradition. It depended on heart, courage, and the willingness to act for the good of others. And in this simple yet profound act, the crown, long dark, long demanding, finally found someone worthy. For the first time in Eldoria's history, a human had proven that leadership could be earned through humility, courage, and empathy. Clara did not claim the throne, but she had already changed the hearts of all who watched. The crown had spoken, and its message was clear. True leaders are made by their actions, not their titles. And in that glowing light, the alien civilization glimpsed the extraordinary potential of humanity. The hall of Eldoria was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the crown that had accepted Clara Evans. For a brief moment, the crown rested lightly on her head, not as a symbol of ownership, but as a sign of recognition. Its light pulsed gently, reflecting the courage, empathy, and humility she had shown throughout the trials. The alien elders, who had once been so certain that only their own kind could satisfy the crown, watched in awe. They saw the truth in Clara's actions. Leadership was not about heritage, power, or appearances, but about the strength of character and the willingness to act for the good of others. The alien nobles, who had once sneered at humans, shifted uncomfortably. Many had never considered that a human could meet the crown's impossible standard. Clara's quiet bravery had shown them that courage could be small in stature but immense in effect. Her empathy, her ability to act for the safety and well-being of everyone around her, had left an impression that words alone could not express. The hall, once filled with tension and expectation, now felt alive with a new understanding. The crown's glow illuminated not only Clara but also the faces of the Eldorians, reflecting their surprise, respect, and the dawning realization that they had misjudged humanity. After the crown returned to its pedestal, the elders approached Clara cautiously. They spoke softly, acknowledging the wisdom and fairness she had demonstrated. Some bowed in deference, others hesitated, unsure of how to honor someone outside their civilization. Clara responded with humility, nodding and offering thanks, but never claiming more than she had earned. She understood that true recognition came not from claiming power, but from serving others. The elders began to discuss reforms quietly among themselves, their voices tinged with awe and introspection. For generations, Eldoria had valued pride, status, and ambition above compassion and empathy. Now, faced with the example of a human girl who had achieved what no alien could, they saw the need for change. They began planning ways to encourage collaboration, humility, and understanding within their society. Clara's example had sparked a transformation that would ripple through their civilization for years to come. Clara herself knew her time on Eldoria was coming to an end. She had been sent from Earth as an ambassador, and her duty was not to rule the alien world but to observe, learn, and represent humanity with respect. As the ceremonies concluded, she prepared to return to her ship, glancing once more at the crown that had briefly acknowledged her worth. She felt a quiet pride, not for personal glory, but for having shown what humans were capable of: courage, empathy, and wisdom that transcended appearances and expectations. Back on Earth, Clara was received as a respected ambassador. She spoke about her experiences, sharing stories of the crown and the lessons she had learned from the alien civilization. Her story spread beyond her immediate circle, reaching scholars, students, and leaders who marveled at the courage of a single human in a galaxy of advanced beings. She became a symbol that humanity, often underestimated, could achieve the impossible when guided by principles of empathy, courage, and integrity. The tale of Clara Evans traveled across worlds. Alien civilizations began to recognize that humans, though physically smaller and seemingly fragile, possessed qualities that could inspire and lead. Her quiet bravery, her humility in success, and her unwavering care for others became examples to emulate. Across Eldoria and neighboring systems, leaders and citizens alike reflected on her actions, questioning their own assumptions about strength, leadership, and worth. Years later, Clara often reflected on her time on Eldoria. She remembered the trials, the energy storm, and the glowing crown. She thought of the alien elders, once rigid and proud, now reforming their society with the ideals she had shown them. She understood that her actions had consequences far beyond her immediate surroundings. A single act of courage, combined with empathy and integrity, could ripple across civilizations, reshaping ideas and inspiring change in ways no one could anticipate. Though she returned to her quiet life on Earth, the memory of Eldoria remained vivid. Clara walked through her days with the knowledge that humanity had potential far greater than many realized. She had faced the impossible and, by simply being true to herself and caring for others, had altered the course of an alien civilization. The crown had recognized her, but more importantly, the people she had helped had seen the value of her actions. Clara's legacy endured, not as a ruler, but as a beacon of what humans could achieve. Her story reminded both humans and aliens that courage, compassion, and humility were more powerful than status, power, or heritage. Even in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations and seemingly impossible challenges, humanity could shine. The crown's brief glow on her head symbolized more than acceptance. It was proof that one human, acting with integrity and heart, could change the world around her and leave a mark that would be remembered for generations.